My husband died in an accident. But exactly 1 year after he passed, I received a letter, written in his handwriting. And it knew I was going to die. I thought I was going insane, until the second letter saved my life. Hold on to your emotions, because the story you're about to hear will change the way you see death and life. I don't know how long I sat on the doorstep, hands trembling with the letter, the light from the kitchen behind me casting a long shadow on the wooden floor. Cold, empty, and insane. I thought I was used to pain. A full year had passed since that fateful day, the day they called me from the hospital with a flat voice, informing me that Ethan had died in a truck collision. No chance of survival. I wasn't allowed to see his face one last time. They sealed the casket. I buried him in silence, under a freezing rain. But today, on the first anniversary of his death, I received a new letter, the ink still fresh, the handwriting, Ethan's. Let me go back to the beginning. So you understand I'm not delusional, nor am I crafting some ghost story for attention. My name is Mira Thompson. I'm 31 years old, a former art teacher in Seattle, and I've loved Ethan since I was 19. He used to be the sunshine in a gray city, the kind of person who could light up a room with just a smile, warm, calm, and kind, in a way that made you believe in the world. We loved each other like kids who had never been hurt, got married after 4 years of dating, and bought our first home with dreams packed into every corner. But then, everything shattered in the briefest moment of life. I remember that morning so clearly. Ethan left earlier than usual. He kissed me quickly, said he had an important meeting with a client in Olympia, a 90-minute drive. I remember snapping at him lightly for forgetting his coffee. "Don't drive too fast," I called after him. He smiled. "I'll be home before you even miss me." He never came back. The police called at 10:34 a.m. His car had crashed head-on with an out-of-control freight truck. Ethan died on the spot. There was nothing left to identify him, except for his wedding ring and wristwatch engraved with, "Love is forever, Mira, Ethan." The months after that blurred into ashes. I lost my job because I couldn't function. I didn't eat, didn't sleep, didn't want to live. His mother, Alice, tried to help me, but her eyes were filled with pain too. We buried him in winter, the wind howling like it was summoning spirits. I started writing letters to Ethan as a way to breathe. I hid them in a drawer, each beginning with "my love" and ending with "see you again." I never sent them, because I knew the dead don't read letters. Until today, on the first anniversary, I woke early, preparing a bouquet of lavender, his favorite flower. I planned to visit Ethan's grave in the afternoon. But when I opened the mailbox in front of my house, I saw a pale yellow envelope. No return address, no postal stamp, just my name, Mira, written in Ethan's handwriting. I slammed the door shut, my heart pounding. I meant to throw it away, but my hands shook so much I couldn't let go. Finally, I tore it open. "Mira, if you're reading this, it means I didn't come back as planned. And it means everything I suspected was true. You won't believe what I'm about to say. You might think I'm crazy, but if you ever loved me, read to the end. Mira, I think someone wants me dead. And if you don't follow what I instruct in the next letters, you'll be in danger too. Don't trust everything you see. Don't trust everyone." I dropped the letter and collapsed into the chair, weightless. Ethan thought someone wanted to kill him? Who? Why? And if it were true, why send a letter a year after he died? I checked the envelope again. No postal stamp, no sender. Then who placed it in my mailbox, today? The chill climbed every vertebra. I looked around the house. Every wedding photo, every old memory turned into a haunting. I saw Ethan's face, looking at me from our wedding picture, that warm smile, now only mystery. I called his mother, my voice trembling like a child's. "Mom, did someone send you a letter?" She was silent for a few seconds, then replied softly, "Yes, yesterday. A nameless envelope, in Ethan's handwriting." And then I knew I wasn't the only one. A bigger question echoed in my head. How did Ethan know he would die? Who sent the letters? And why? Was now the time for everything to begin? I decided to open the old drawer, the one where I hid dozens of letters I'd written to Ethan. I wanted to compare the handwriting, the ink, the paper. But when I opened it, every letter I'd ever written to him was gone. Only one slip of paper remained inside. I've read them, and I will write back. I slammed the drawer shut. In that moment, I had no idea what I was facing. A cruel prank? A mentally disturbed person? Or something that defied human logic? Before nightfall, I received the second letter. And this time, it saved my life. I didn't sleep that entire night. I sat in the living room, the letter from Ethan, a man dead for a year, in front of me, telling me his death wasn't an accident, that someone might want to kill me, and that he would continue writing. Part of me wanted to toss it all into the fire, but the other part, the part that had survived the agony of this loss for 365 days, couldn't look away from his handwriting. And then, exactly at 7 a.m., I heard the thump at the mailbox. I ran like a madwoman. The second letter had arrived. No envelope, just a neatly folded paper, the handwriting slightly shakier, but still Ethan's. Mira, this morning, exactly at 7:45 a.m., you'll be about to turn on the stove to boil water. Don't. There's a gas leak under the stove. You won't be able to smell it. If you light the burner, the kitchen will explode. An accident? Maybe. But if you don't believe Metri, checking the valve under the stove. I'm begging you, don't turn on the stove today. Ethan. I froze. The clock read 7:03. I rushed into the kitchen. I hadn't turned the stove on, yet hadn't gotten to it. I knelt and opened the cabinet. The gas valve looked normal, until I brought my hand closer. Faint whiff of gas rose up. I flung the windows open and frantically called the gas repairman. They arrived 40 minutes later, and after checking, the technician said, "You're very lucky. The valve was twisted the wrong way." Pressure was building. If you had turned the stove on this morning, it would have definitely exploded. I almost died. From a technical accident. But Ethan knew in advance? How can someone who's dead know the future? Or was it just like Ethan wrote, he had suspected something before he died? I began frantically searching, dug through his old phone, emails, drive, computer, call history. I sat there all day, eyes blurred. And then, I found a hidden folder in the external hard drive he used to store our wedding photos. The folder was named, Mira, If You're Alive. I could barely breathe as I opened it. Inside were countless notes and video clips, many recorded just days before Ethan's death. One was titled, Final Night Call, Don't Expose. I played it, and Ethan's voice came through, whispering, urgent, trembling. I think someone's following me, maybe from the company. Something's not right. They checked my laptop, scheduled a meeting at 6 a.m., but the office was empty. He paused for a few seconds. If I'm right then, someone orchestrated this accident. Mira, don't trust Eric. If you're hearing this, then I'm already gone. But keep digging. You'll understand everything once you get to the warehouse. Eric, Ethan's best friend, the one who arranged the funeral for me, who comforted me all year like a big brother. My throat closed up. My heart pounded. I didn't want to believe it. But raw data doesn't lie. Ethan suspected Eric before he died. I called Eric at 11 p.m. Can you come to my place? It's serious. He arrived in 20 minutes, calm face at the door. I didn't beat around the bush. Did Ethan ever tell you he thought he was being watched? Eric hesitated, then said, he seemed anxious, but it was just work pressure. You know Ethan, he could be paranoid. I placed the phone on the table. Hit play. Ethan's voice echoed. Clear. Strong. Accusing. When the part "Don't Trust Eric" played, Eric froze. His face turned pale. I asked, why did you never tell me that? Why did Ethan mention the warehouse? Eric stood up, ready to leave. I shouted, You know something, don't you? He turned back, eyes red. I didn't mean for Ethan to die, but I knew, and I stayed silent. I broke down. It wasn't an accident. It was a chosen death. And my husband's best friend knew. Rage surged. I screamed in his face, pounded his chest like a wounded animal. Eric just stood there, silent, taking it. Then he said, I'll tell you everything, but not here. Go to the warehouse where Ethan used to rent outside the city. I went to my room, locked the door, exhausted. My heart felt strangled. The world I once knew now shattered. What about Ethan's family? I called his mother Alice. I choked as I told her everything, hoping for some comfort. But she didn't believe me. Mira, you need help. You're imagining too much. Ethan's gone, you have to accept that. I have recordings, letters. Someone almost killed me. Mira, don't call again if you're going to keep talking this nonsense. I buried my face in the pillow, cried until no sound came out. I had no one, no friends, no family, no husband. I was alone. The third letter arrived at 3 a.m. You're alone, I know, but you must be strong. Don't go to the warehouse alone. Someone is watching. And among the people you think are your friends, one wants you dead. I clenched the paper. In the dark room, in the silence, broken and fragile. I lost Ethan. I nearly lost my life. And now, I don't know who I can trust anymore. Everyone says I'm imagining things, that I'm crazy, that I'm haunted by Ethan's death. But I know someone is still playing cat and mouse with me. And Ethan, even in death, was still the only one trying to save me from a conspiracy yet to be completed. I sat in the middle of the living room. Around me were letters, recordings, journals, old photos. Everything pointed to one thing. Ethan knew he was going to die, and someone wanted me to follow him. I had to go to the storage unit, but I couldn't go alone. I looked in the mirror. The face staring back was no longer the gentle Mira from our wedding day. Now it was a woman who had lost her husband, been betrayed, nearly killed, but was still standing. I didn't cry anymore. There was only rage. And one burning desire. I had to know who murdered Ethan. And why? They still hadn't let me go. I used to believe pain had a limit. But I was wrong. There were days when I felt nothing. No hunger, no thirst, no will to get out of bed. The house reeked of wilted funeral flowers, but I didn't have the strength to throw them out. I left the living room light on all night, not because I feared the dark, but because the light was the only thing reminding me I was still alive. After the third letter, I was completely paralyzed. I didn't eat for 2 days. My body thinned out as if my soul had been drained. Each morning, I woke up with only one thought. If Ethan's gone, what's the point of me being alive? The cruelest part wasn't Ethan's death. It was the fact that he knew he was going to die, and he tried to protect me while I blindly lived beside a traitor. Eric knew something, and he chose silence. My in-laws didn't believe me. My friends distanced themselves. My birth mother? She sent one cold message. You need a doctor, not more ghost letters. I started hearing Ethan's voice every night, or maybe I just imagined it. Once, I dreamed of him standing in the burned-down kitchen, reaching toward me, saying, Mira, you have to keep going. We can't live together, but you can finish what I couldn't. I jolted awake, my pillow soaked with cold sweat. I looked around the room once, our haven. The wedding photo sat crooked on the table. The shirt Ethan wore when he proposed still hung in the closet, unwashed. I reached out and touched the collar. It still held traces of his old cologne. And then I cried. For the first time in days, I screamed as if someone were tearing my heart apart. Why him? Why couldn't I have died instead? Why did they have to kill him? After everything, I decided to go to the storage unit. Not because I wanted to, but because I had to know. If not for me, then for Ethan, the man who gave his life to warn me from beyond death. That day it rained. Eric promised he wouldn't come along, so you can decide for yourself. I drove alone, more than an hour on the highway, to the outskirts where Ethan once rented a small unit, isolated from everything. Unit 17. The metal door was rusted, the combination lock worn out. I entered our wedding date 412 and the door clicked open, like it had been waiting. Inside was pitch black, damp and dusty. I turned on my flashlight. A foldable wooden table, an old file rack, a pile of sealed cardboard boxes, and a wall covered with photos and notes. I stepped closer, and my breath stopped. The whiteboard on the wall was a connection map like something out of a crime movie. At the center was a photo of Ethan. Around it, Eric, a middle-aged man in a suit I had never seen before, an employee from the insurance company, and Alice, my mother-in-law. I backed away. I couldn't believe my eyes. Why was she here? Ethan had marked everything in red. Arrows, notes. The final line read, "The one behind it all is..." The rest had been blacked out. But below, there was a small voice recorder and a USB labeled, "Open last." I played the recording first. Ethan's voice. Calm. But every word carried a storm. "Mira, if you're hearing this, I'm gone. I used to think my company was just another fintech group. But no. After a partner died in a sudden accident, I discovered a massive money laundering scheme, using life insurance investment contracts." I held my breath. And you know what? The company took out life insurance policies on me, not one, but 3 under names no one would expect. Ethan paused. "One of them is my mother, Alice." I reeled. My head spun. My ears rang. I couldn't believe it. But she agreed to let them use her name in exchange for funding her hospital. Eric was the connection. The man named Marvin, the CEO, is behind it all. I was going to expose them, but they found out, and... Ethan's voice broke, then cut off. I shakily opened the USB. Inside were scans of the 3 insurance policies, just as Ethan said. A recording of a meeting between Eric and Marvin discussing how to stage the accident. A copied email from Alice suggesting suspending contact with Ethan during the investigation. I couldn't breathe. My throat felt like it was stuffed with cotton. The mother-in-law who had held me while I wept at the funeral had traded her son's death for investment capital. I stood in that storage unit for over an hour, motionless. Rain dripped through the leaky metal roof. My flashlight dimmed. And I understood. Ethan had done everything he could to bring me here. He knew he wouldn't survive, but he gave everything to save me from the same fate. I lived because he traded his life. I don't know how I drove home. Only that night, I lay in bed holding our wedding photo. I promise I'll bring them to light. For you, for the truth, for our love, even if it only lives on in letters. I never thought I'd one day look her in the eyes and not tremble. Alice sat there, under the soft yellow lights of the upscale cafe in the private hospital where she worked as a financial advisor. Still impeccably dressed, hair neatly pinned, lips blood red, gaze sharp as a razor, as if nothing had ever happened, as if she hadn't let her son die. I placed the USB on the table. "You know what's in here, don't you?" Alice didn't blink, didn't flinch. She simply sipped her Earl Grey and said gently, "You look thinner. Not eating well since Ethan passed?" I smiled, a cold smile metallic in a snowstorm. "You don't need to call him Ethan anymore. That name doesn't belong to you." I thought I would scream, throw water in her face, tear apart that mask of emotionless calm. But I didn't do that. I just looked at her calmly, clearly the way Ethan had looked into the wall of truth, even knowing he would die. "You sold your own son's death for an investment in this hospital. You signed the insurance contract without saying a word. You knew he was investigating and you let it happen. And when I almost died, you stayed silent." My voice dropped. "The most painful thing isn't that you betrayed me, it's that you betrayed the one who trusted you most." Alice still didn't flinch, but her eyes darkened just slightly, like a passing shadow. "You think I did it for the money?" I clenched my fists under the table, refusing to fall into the trap of familiar excuses. "No, you did it for power, for your position, because this hospital needed funding before the IPO. Ethan was a potential risk. You chose the insurance company over your own son." For the first time, I saw her lips tremble. Just a bit, as if the truth had cracked the cold mask she wore. Alice set her teacup down, silent for a moment. "You don't understand." Ethan changed. He investigated, he threatened, he threw himself into something dangerous. I tried to stop him. "By being complicit?" I snapped. "By keeping things quiet. If Ethan kept pushing, they would have killed you too. I begged him to stop, Mira. He wouldn't. He believed in justice, in truth. Things this society has no room for." I sighed. "You didn't kill Ethan, but you let him die." That sentence was a verdict. And I stood up. I didn't cry. Not anymore. I had waited for an apology, but it turned out I didn't need it to move forward. I just needed to speak the truth once, to someone who had denied it. And for the first time in this entire tragedy, I felt light. That afternoon, I met Eric in the basement parking garage of his office building. He walked over, looked at me, voice soft. "Mira, what are you doing here?" I held out the scanned insurance contract to him and spoke without any introduction. "You're going to court. For conspiracy to commit murder, for insurance fraud, for betraying Ethan, and betraying me." Eric began to smirk, that same arrogant smirk he always wore when lying. But this time, I cut him off. "Don't say a word. Don't defend yourself. Don't pretend you didn't know. Don't tell me you were forced." I stepped closer, close enough to hear the breath of the man who used to sleep beside me every night. "You didn't just betray Ethan. You betrayed friendship. You betrayed what little humanity you had left." I pulled out my phone and pressed play. The recording of Eric and Marvin echoed in the empty garage. "No need for much staging. One sudden break on the mountain road will do. The company will handle the rest. Ethan knows too much." "What about Mira?" "She suspects nothing. Weak, easy to control. I'll take care of it." Eric's voice rang out like a slap in his own face. I looked at him one last time. "I used to be weak, but you forgot the most important thing. I learned from pain." That night, I went home and opened all the letters Ethan had ever left me. I took photos, packed them up, and sent everything to an investigative journalist, someone who used to be Ethan's friend. I didn't seek justice for revenge. I did it, so Ethan wouldn't be forgotten. A few weeks later, the story went public. Ethan's name appeared in the papers, not as a victim but as a silent hero who gave his life. The insurance company crumbled. Marvin was arrested. Eric was prosecuted. Alice stepped down from the hospital. And me? I moved out of the old house, relocated to another town. Not to run away, but to begin again for the first time, with a heart at peace. I went to Windermere Hill where Ethan had once proposed. I brought a letter, the last one I wrote to him. "Ethan, I did it. I kept my promise. I lived. I forgave. And I remember you. Not with tears, but with gratitude." I burned the letter under the sunset. The flames danced in the wind, lifting it away like all the words left unsaid. I no longer waited for letters from him. Because now, Ethan wasn't on the other side of death. He was in every breath I took, every step I walked, every day I lived more fully. I don't know how long I sat in the new room, small, warm, and quiet with the final letter in my hand. It arrived on a day when I no longer expected it, no longer questioned, no longer woke in the night to check the mailbox. I no longer lived in fear of what might come. I lived because I still could. The paper had turned a soft ivory. The handwriting still his slightly slanted to the right, hurried yet careful, as if he knew this would be the last thing he left for me. "Mira, if you're reading this, it means you've gone farther than you ever thought you could. And if you're still there sitting in the light, then smile, even just a little, because it means you survived." I laughed, a quiet laugh full of tears. After everything, I didn't go back to the old city. I left with a suitcase of clothes, a few books, and an old photo frame of Ethan and me under the golden maple tree. I went to a small seaside town, a place I'd once visited on a short vacation when we were in love. That place had sunlight streaming through the window every morning, a small cafe on the hillside, where I got a part-time job, a silver-haired owner who always tucked an extra cookie into my hand each night. My life now isn't loud, not glamorous, but every morning I wake up, I know I belong to myself. And that is enough. I didn't become an investigator, didn't write a book telling it all. I had no need for revenge or to prove anything anymore. I just chose to live differently. Not for anyone, not against anyone. I started learning again, not to forget, but to understand. I took pottery classes on weekends. I started writing letters to people who never got a thank you from me, from the doctor who cared for Ethan, to the neighbor who once brought me porridge when I couldn't get out of bed. I tended to plants. I learned how to bake. I adopted a stray cat, with a broken leg, terrified of even the softest sound. But eventually, it curled up by my feet on rainy nights. Like me, we weren't perfect, but we were alive. Ethan's letter is now kept in a glass frame on my desk. But my favorite part isn't the goodbye. It's the last paragraph. Mira, if one day you feel lost, just close your eyes and think about the little things. The morning sun, the smell of fresh coffee, a hug that doesn't need words. And if your heart still stirs for those things, then you've never truly lost anything at all. You're just starting again. I don't know who you are, the one listening to me now. But if you're sitting in the dark, if you're thinking, I can't go on anymore, then look at me. I once curled up in the middle of the night, not knowing if tomorrow would come. I once opened my eyes and didn't want to leave the bed. Once sat in front of a photo of the man I loved and whispered, I'm sorry I'm still breathing and you're not. But then one morning, light streamed through the curtain. The cat jumped onto the bed. Soft music played from the neighbor's house. And I knew, tomorrow still comes, whether you're ready or not. I end each day now with a new habit, writing down one thing I'm grateful for. Today I wrote, thank you that I no longer need a warning letter, because I'm no longer afraid of what's coming. I live, not to run from death, but to embrace this life as it is. On the wall in my new apartment, I hung a small oil painting of a long sunlit road leading to the sea. A small woman is walking on it, back straight, carrying nothing in her hands. No more burdens, no more resentment, just herself and the sun ahead. On a morning as gentle as that, I locked the door behind me and walked down the coastal path. The scent of salt in the wind, the waves gently crashing against the rocks. I stopped before the stone steps leading to the beach, my bare feet touching the warmth below. I am me, no longer broken, no longer bitter. Just me. And for the first time in a long time, that makes me smile. Oh, the letters never sent, the journey of a broken soul finding herself again. From a woman who thought she was living in love and trust, Mira fell into the abyss of betrayal, pain, and brutal truth. The mysterious letters marked by her late husband, Ethan, not only saved her from death, but led her into a journey uncovering the dark side of those she once called family. She once collapsed, once doubted herself, once believed life had no escape. But through nights without light, Mira stood up. She walked through loss, through lies, through the haunting past, and then faced it, forgave, and freed herself from the pain that had lasted too long. The last letter, no longer a warning, but a farewell. Ethan didn't come back, but because of him, Mira became a new woman, imperfect, but free. Not needing to be understood, just needing to be herself. She didn't seek revenge. She didn't run away. She lived, truly lived, with all she had. If you are in a dark chapter of your life, please don't think it's the final page. Because tomorrow will come, gently, but enough for you to breathe, to begin again. Just like Mira. I am me, no longer broken, no longer bitter. Just me. And for the first time in a long time, that makes me smile. Subscribe and follow the channel so you won't miss stories that leave you speechless. Share this if you've ever seen yourself somewhere in Mira's journey.